Since 2014, Robin Croft and Marcos Smith have collaborated on large ephemeral outdoor installations. These have been mostly weekend projects, and they have wanted more time to dedicate to a larger project. In October of 2021, Robin and Marcos went for a 2-week art residency at Azule in the mountains of North Carolina near Hot Springs, which is not far from Asheville. During this residency, the two artists collaborated on the largest installation they have made. The scale of the site, the time available, and the abundance of deadfall allowed them to be more ambitious with this project. Robin decided to develop his idea for a stage that had been thwarted by a beaver on a previous commission. The beaver had cut down one of the trees Robin planned to anchor his stage with. This forced him to change that project subject. Marcos wanted to build a group of figures with related attitudes. Both artists saw the stage as the focal point through which the resulting play of figures could be seen. They were accustomed to developing their individual parts of the installation while staying aware of their collaborators' progress. Being attuned to each other's work and style gave cohesion to the parts of the whole. Marcos had no preconceived narrative for the figures, but as places were selected and each was built, they suggested characteristics and poses that affected the creation of the following figure. This process formed an interconnection between the figures. He was able to complete 5 figures in different poses with varying attitudes. Though he sensed a narrative, he intentionally left this to the viewer's interpretation. It was important for Robin that the fabric of the stage curtains should be dense enough to block the view, forcing the opening to reveal the narrative below. The stage was the focal point of the installation. Its flowing lines suggested pulled-back curtains framing a vast unfolding scene. The figures in the vale, viewed through the stage curtains, suggested a play unfolding below. The scale of the installation was in keeping with the vista. This tableau could also be seen in its entirety from the Azule Residency Lodge. The woods above Robin's stage provided plenty of deadfall. He needed long, flexible pieces of wood for weaving, whereas Marcos preferred sturdy pieces for structure and curved pieces for figurative details. Gathering and hauling deadfall was a big part of their daily routine.
So I got myself I already took down 1 bundle. I got about 24 more up here. And I'm pulling over these really long ones for you. All right. Yeah, watch this step right here, just falling thing.
Much of the labor on this project consisted of marching uphill into the forest and collecting branches. Once bundled, Marcos and Robin dragged the wood back down to their respective work sites. Many such trips were repeated each day. The cluster of small trees across the vale from the lodge offered good anchoring for the stage and a great view of the vale below. Robin took great pains to position and frame the view, creating a sense of drama. The stage structure was very solid, using a weaving technique well anchored to the trees. Robin built a wooden platform to support his stepladder on the incline to reach the higher points safely. Being faithful to the ephemeral nature of this installation, the artists used biodegradable twine for tying pieces together and anchoring them to trees where weaving was not feasible. The stage was built so solidly that it would surely be the last structure of the installation to deteriorate. Once the structure was in place, additional deadfall was added to create an opaque curtain image. The striations of branches suggested the fabric and folds of curtains. To Robin, the visual strokes of the branches were like marks in a drawing. Marcos had to use 2 different ladders to build his first 2 figures. At times, he found himself in awkward positions adding wood. Since he constantly had to move them for better vantage, the downhill leg of the ladder had to be carefully elevated with a platform of flat rocks to make it stable. His first figure took on a life of its own and grew about 20 feet high, larger than he first anticipated. It embraced the tree that it was anchored to. He seemed to be attempting to hide behind it. If seen as an upright bass player, he could be serenading. Near the male, Marcos made an aloof female leaning against a tree. Though the bodies of these figures were clearly human-like, their heads suggested more grotesque creatures. This ambiguity was intentional, conveying the duality of human nature. At the bottom of the veil, Marcos made a seated figure that was an easier posture to work with on the ground. This one was apart from the first 2, but could be a rival male. Slightly above this, he made another figure, seated on a boulder, facing away from the others as a loner or outcast. His demeanor was dejected. Finally, near the end of the residency, Marcos made a reclining female figure which he thought would be easy to build. This figure turned out to be a challenge. He had to exaggerate her features to be seen effectively from different vantage points. The stage offers up a scene with 5 figures. Their narrative depends on the viewer's perspective. One figure appears to look towards a female from behind a tree while she ignores his gaze. Another sits below a tree, unsure of his relationship to the first two, while his neighbor sits quite apart, isolated or rejected. The last figure stretches out on the grass. Is she longing for company or relishing her own solitude?
Station. Now we need a train. A train. There's the caboose. Alright, now you can pull over. I'll pull in right here. Hot Springs Resort and Spa. And do not use my voice in any of this. Unless it was something we were intending. Or I will kill you. Here I'm working on a smaller version based on the amount of wood and trees available to anchor the sides. Marcos and I both are working in what's called wattle, and that comes from wattle and daub, but we don't use the mud yet. We may do that again someday. But this is deadfall from the woods surrounding us. We have to gather our own, so there's quite a lot of work involved in hunting and gathering the materials. And as you can see, it's everything from tree limbs to roots to some pieces of lumber here and there occasionally show up. But for the most part, I'm doing these side curtains that are somewhat of a cliche shape, recognizable, and I'm going to try to fill it out a little further. Today is the first day I've been able to actually work. We had a little problem getting the ladder, and I had to build a platform to keep from tumbling down the hill. Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of gathering, and Marcos has already completed a couple of really nice large sculptures. So,
the first figure is the one holding on to the trees, behind the tree, embracing it. Kind of looks like an upright bass player. He's looking over to the second figure that I've started, where the ladder is. You can see it's a female figure. You can see her 2 legs, and I've started fleshing out the torso. And she's just leaning back against the tree. Then I plan to do a seated figure on one of these two trees here, kind of facing towards her, or down the gully here. And then if I have time, I want to do a figure over here on one of these rocks with his back to the group, kind of like an antisocial or rejected figure. I didn't really intend to make such a large figure, but it just kind of took on a life of its own, and we had the ladders to get up that high. I was able to do it, and I'm trying to keep the figures about the same scale so they work well together.